little later. All right, so I'm going to move into these import exercise solutions here. And this first exercise has us importing and testing 3 of the different functions from our functions exercise file. And the exercise has us practicing each of the 3 different ways of importing. So this first exercise, it says run an interactive Python session and import the module. Let's give that a shot. So in an interactive Python session, you're going to run that from your terminal. That's the Python REPL. So I'm going to run IPython. Now it's important I run IPython from my Python exercises folders, or you're going to have a bad time. All right, now inside of that IPython folder, I'm looking for functions exercises, right? So if I were to say import functions exercises, this bombs out and says module not found. And this isn't due to any other issue than the following. I do have a file called functions exercises, but I'm going to direct your attention to the fact that it is a Jupyter notebook and not a Python script. So I've painted myself into a corner on purpose here, right? So what in the heck do you do when you have a Jupyter notebook and you need that specific Jupyter notebook to be a Python script? Well, here's exactly what you do. You open up that Jupyter notebook in Jupyter Notebooks. I see I have some functions in here. This is some of the work that I think Ravinder did as part of his review there. And what I'm going to do is download a copy. Oh, the page was looking weird. Let's try that again. So inside of Jupyter Notebooks, you go to File, then Download As. You can't just change the file extension. Like, computers aren't quite that adaptive to reading your mind just yet. It's still going to take a while. But I'm downloading this as a Python script. So this puts that, oh my gosh, my operating system is freaking out because, or the browser is freaking out. It's saying, oh my gosh, code can hurt your computer. That's because the only thing different than a virus and a program is a virus is a program that you didn't mean to run. Viruses are just programs, but they try to trick you into running them, right? So this is your browser looking out for you. So I'm going to keep that file that went into my downloads folder. So I've got to move it from downloads to this particular folder. And now I see that I have a function exercises notebook and a function exercises script. And what I can do now is from the Python REPL import function exercises. And it broke. Okay, let's see what did it this time. Oh, a typo. Functions with an S. So totally unintentional, but import functions with an S exercises. There we go. And we run some code. Okay. Now, why on earth is there a bunch of junk coming in when I run my import? Because it's just random procedural code in that file, right? So let's open up that their file. And we see somewhere there's got to be a print somewhere, and there it is. The print of enumerate apple, the print of enumerated apple. Yeah, there we go. Well, that should have fixed it. All I did was comment out my prints. The shortcut for that in VS Code and in other editors and in Jupyter Notebooks is Command/. It comments out a line of code. So now we can import functions exercises and I don't get any junk. It's nice and clean, nice and tight. So we want nice, clean, tight Python scripts that don't have a bunch of prints everywhere. I realize we introduce things and say, hey, put print everywhere. But as we make more mature software, prints aren't going everywhere. Yeah, with Command F. Yeah, which will work in VS Code, it'll work in Jupyter Notebooks, it'll work in any editor. Yeah. Yeah. And once we're in IPython with those functions exercises, what this does for us once we import functions exercises, we can talk to can access the functionality with the dot notation off of that. So is to, I can put in some number or what are my other options? Hey, look at that. That tab autocomplete will work on your own modules as well. It works in IPython, it works in Jupyter Notebooks. The tab autocomplete is your friend. You don't have to always remember the spelling for everything with tab autocomplete. So I can now call isval and I can say why. It's not. Check the chat real quick. Okay, cool. So save that. So we managed to run a function from the terminal. Okay. Now this has us create a Python script called import exercises.py that calls that imports from, uses the from syntax to import calculate tip. And then we want to use that. So well, how do we do that? You exit your Jupyter Notebook and you, in your favorite editor, you bring up import exercise .py. If the file doesn't exist, VS Code tries to create it. And then we can say from functions, plural, exercises, plural in my case, import calculate tip. And then when we're ready, we can say print calculate tip. On a $100 dinner, let's tip 22%. Okay. I realize that VS Code has some ways of evaluating code inside of it, right? And sometimes that works just fine. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get other problems. And I find that to be, quite frankly, I find that to be a little enraging, especially when I can go to the terminal and just get my truth from the terminal. Import exercise. Oh, I didn't save my work. There we go, $22 tip based on that. What's going on with this name not found business? There could be a couple of reasons. One of them could be because VS Code is being a jerk and it put our terminal in the home directory instead of your directory. Other reasons could include having multiple installations of Python, which all of us do. That's usually the cause. So this time, last class, it was the cause of that same error was different Python versions. But I trust this terminal. I trust this terminal with my life. I trust VS Code terminal with my frustration. Maybe not my life, but like pretty close. Terminal, you know, you can put weight on a terminal. Some other tool that has a terminal built into it somewhere, things can go wrong. So yeah, we can import into a Python script. We can also import into a notebook. Strictly speaking, we can import notebooks into other notebooks, but since notebooks can be a little fragile sometimes, I'm not going to show you how to do that. What I will show you how to do is step 3 of exercise 1, and that is from functions, exercises, import get letter grade. Now this imports that function. So because I imported from the module, I no longer have to type the module first to get to the function name. The function name of get letter grade now exists in the namespace, in the namespace of, it's kind of like a folder for variables of everything else in here. Now I typed get letter grade, but nothing's happening. Anybody got a observation or hypothesis why that might be, Fred? There's no input. And how do we get an input into a function? It's with the parentheses. And then we type whatever our input is into the function. So if you made 105, you better believe you got an A. If you made a 89, it's a nice B. Now, with the syntax of from module import get letter grade, I don't have access to the other functions like is2. That's name not found. Nor do I have access to the whole module because I said, hey, module, just give me get letter grade. So if we wanted to tack on some more inputs by name here, I could add them on by name. And it puts those into the variable space. So now I can call the is2 function without calling the module. Yeah, Bert.
So if you do just import functions, exercise, pull everything up.
Yeah. So Bert's question was, if I only import functions exercises, it imports the whole module. And what you'll need to do is type the module name dot function name. Like handle commas. Yeah, and you're going to see things both ways. You're going to see times where we import the entire module and all of its functionality, like NumPy, pandas. Other times we're going to pull in, hey, give me just some specific functions. Right? It's a matter of, I won't say style, it's a matter of what you need first. And then if the need's not the driver, then it's a matter of style or preference.
Say, while you're working,
Mhm.
but after you're done, you've got it all left up. Is it worth it to go back and say,
Yeah.
any of these things?
Yeah. So Greg's question was, is it worth it to start by importing the kitchen sink, everything on the module, and then figure out what you don't need? That could give you some performance gains later. Tiny ones, but tiny ones add up if you're running something 1,000 times a day or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Let's talk about this itertools module. Now this is, I put a little guidance in the Jemison Slack channel, which I'll tend to do, and all of the instructors will tend to do from time to time. If we know that there's something gonna snag you up, we try to give you a heads up in the Slack channel if we didn't mention it in the lecture. That doesn't mean like you need to only have Slack open all the time, but check it every so often. Now, the itertools module is kind of weird because it would give us back certain objects that weren't the same things as list. So let's import itertools. Iter is short for iteration. Hey, just like one of those big 3 components of programming, sequence, selection, iteration. Itertools has very specific functionality for some fancy iteration. And when I say fancy iteration, what I mean is checking things like permutations and combinations and all sorts of cool stuff. I mean, iterations and combinations are the tip of the iceberg, right? Counters, accumulators, group by, pairwise iterations. Yeah, so we'll take a look at the docs in just a second. So how many ways can you combine the letters ABC with 1, 2, 3? And looking at that, that is as easy as 1, 2, 3, right? So combinations, let's check the documentation. Combinatorial iterators. Woo! What'd you learn in Codep today? Combinatorial iterators. Let's talk about these 2 pieces of functionality. A combination is an arrangement of different elements where order does not matter. Order does not matter with a combination. So the letter A, B is the same combination as BA when we're talking combination, because order doesn't matter with combinations, which makes combination locks a lie. Combination locks should actually be called permutation locks because order does matter with a permutation. So let's we were asked for combinations, so let's check the docs on combinations. Combinations. Ah, here we go. Here's a good example. Combinations, we send in our collection and then the number of elements per combination. So that's our second argument. So let's say, how many ways can we combine ABC and 1, 2, 3? Well, we'll do itertools dot combinations, ABC 1, 2, 3, and how many different ways? Let's see, that's combinations of two things. So yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. Product of ABC and 1, 2, 3, like this. Yeah, perfect. So I got something on my screen. Thank you. Thank you for that, Stephen. I should have slowed down a little bit, but I've backed myself into a corner on time, so I didn't slow down. Moral of the story is slow down. Thank you. So we have this itertools product object. Well, what the heck can I do with that? Well, much like how range, remember range gives us back a range object, but the range object isn't the number 1 through 1,000,000. It is the idea of the number 1 through 1,000,000. And we don't realize that in memory. We don't actually make that concrete unless we turn it into a list. It's something called a generator. So we can turn that into a list, or we could for loop that object. I'm going to check our chat real quick. Yeah, okay, cool. Next up, permutations, or combinations rather. So we'll say itertools, combinations, A, B, C, D, and we're looking for combinations of 2 characters. That gives us back an itertools object or a combination object, when we can unpack that with a list. Same thing with itertools, permutations. Now, permutations has more output, has more elements than combinations. And that's because when order matters, we have more possibilities. We have more possibilities there. That's how to read that one. Cool. The next exercises on the curriculum were less about importing things and more about getting y'all more practice with working with JSON. JSON is lists of dictionaries. And here's something really cool. So we're making exercise 3 bonus. We've communicated that. I've communicated that with our TA John already. But the thing that's important to know about JSON. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And you may notice we're not writing JavaScript. Are you okay?
I just don't like JavaScript.
Oh, well, but JSON, whether if you like or love or hate the language itself, JavaScript Object Notation is quite possibly the coolest thing to happen to the web since the 90s. And what I mean by that is JSON is either a list of dictionaries, like so, So JSON is either going to be a list of dictionaries or a dictionary. And the big deal with this, why this is so cool, is we now have a data interchange format that is completely independent of the programming language involved, completely. If you were doing a bunch of stuff on the web, maybe in the 90s, XML might have been the new hotness to do data interchange. JSON is very nice. It's very flexible. Here's the good news. All JSON is syntactically correct Python data structures. So either a dictionary or a list of dictionaries, which is really nice. In a language called JavaScript, it's the same thing, a list of objects, which in JavaScript are dictionaries. So yeah, number 3 is a bonus. My encouragement on this one is break off one of these exercises whenever you have a little bit of time, chew on it a little bit. We do want you to get more practice with lists of dictionaries. But we're also going to give you some superpowers next week that will chew up and spit out lists of dictionaries even easier than using a for loop. So, yeah.
I see the last part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Yeah.
Like the original way you were trying to do it.
Yeah, so the product function is always going to start with one of the members from the first argument, from the first collection.
Right, I thought we were trying to do like a combination.
Yeah, the challenge with combinations and permutations is we need a second argument determining how long that is. So a combination or permutation of something of 4 could be 4 as an argument right here. We have this many unique combinations or permutations rather of A, B, C, D. If we pick 4 at a time, what if we pick 3 at a time? 2 at a time? 1 at a time. So see how this second argument is critical. The product function doesn't have a second argument that limits that collection. Does that provide a little bit of clarity, Jason?
So,
That's not what you asked? Okay.
before you said like 8, you know, 6 or something.
Yeah, you mean on the first one, if you used combinations instead? Yeah, on the first one, if you use combinations on ABC 1, 2, 3, here's the challenge. Here's the first challenge. We need a length of the combination argument here. So if we said 2 is the length, we would get pairs, unique pairs, but also we would get 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3 as well. And that's not quite the same as matching A with 1, A with 2, A with 3, B with 1, B with 2, B with 3, C with 1, C with 2, C with 3. But yeah, to use combinations or permutations, you have to have a second argument because the code can't just read your mind. You have to say how long of a collection. Now, if I said like more that the combination had to be longer than the original collection, then the answer is empty set. The answer is empty set. Right? If I said 6 characters, right? 5. So yeah, the second argument is critical, which is why the product is the right choice on that one. Did we get there? It was a journey, but we got there together. Thank you. All right, cool. I'll get this up on GitHub for y'all. we can take a short break and we'll come back in, let's see,